So, welcome to another episode of Sophisticated Ignorance. I'm your host, Steven. Niema's still not here.
Nieema is in our thoughts and prayers.
Why you said it like that? Like she's suffering.
No, she's not suffering. No,
She's
she's
good.
living her best life. People just say thoughts and prayers like out of crazy. Like people overuse the term thoughts and prayers.
I think you've just overused it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, great example. Great example.
Okay.
Niema's doing good.
Niema's
She's,
doing
still balancing work and school and whatnot.
Definitely teasing.
She will return at her earliest convenience.
Like
But
an Avengers movie.
But we have a packed house. Obviously, you've already heard Vixon's voice.
Yeah.
And we have Aaron
Yeah.
from Vital Information
Yeah.
back again.
Yeah, back at it. I don't have another rhyme after that. I was going
I thought you was about to
right?
spit.
Didn't
I
it
was-
sound like it?
I was expecting at least 2 bars.
I'm sorry. I couldn't. I was going to, but no. I gave up. Perhaps at the end.
Next time.
I'm lying to you.
Oh, we got a freestyle at the end.
Really?
No, I'm lying to you.
I heard,
Oh.
I
I
just
heard
said I'm
freestyle at the
lying.
I
end.
got some instrumentals queued up.
It's okay. You can leave them there. You don't
No,
need
we gotta
them.
go back to high school where we beat on the table.
Be on the table.
Oh.
The grinding beat.
Grinding.
That shit only works when you do it on a table. Like somebody hummed it to me, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing. And they were like,
Humming the grinding tune is disrespectful to every
I had to
song.
guess it though. Like,
What is it, karaoke?
no, it's just like what me and my co-host do.
Oh yeah,
We be
y'all do
humming and
do
shit.
that. Yeah, humming and
I'm a little
stuff.
slow myself, but neither here nor there.
But before we even get into this week's episode, this is our return. So again, I want to welcome everybody back and welcome both of y'all for joining me for this episode. I'll do a little ad and y'all go, chime in if need be. If you follow the show page or you follow me on Instagram, you know how much I'm a advocate supporter of Scotch Porter. Not only is it a black-owned business, it's instrumental daily essentials for men in keeping up their hygiene. Because, I be talking my shit from time to time. I like feeling like I just came from Wakanda and whatnot. So, if you use the code SI10 and go on scotchporter.com, you'll be able to save some money and, feel better about yourself. Because I think men in general don't make an effort to be out here to, upkeep themselves and making sure they're on point at all times. So that's me giving back to the community.
Okay.
Don't you appreciate it, guys?
No, I appreciate it a lot. I'm just saying, like, the fact that you said you feel like men don't do enough is like, that's a lot. Because you are one of them. You know what
Co-sign.
I'm saying?
I co-sign that.
Yeah. Like,
I
women can say that, and it's just like, we're women. But, like, if a man's like,
especially in summers in New York City, you start to get a lot of odors.
yeah,
It's like, bruh.
you could have done more, but you didn't.
Yeah,
And
you
now
did the
we're
bare
here.
minimum. You
Mhm.
didn't.
Hey, women always say that we have to be accountable for our own selves. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I'm just,
There we go.
I mean, I'm not saying that I do everything I need to do. I'm just saying. I'm out here giving at least 80%.
A solid 80. You appreciate it. You
No.
appreciate it.
That's a passing grade.
Somebody married me, so I mean, I'm doing something right. I'm doing.
Technically, you're
something
safe.
great.
You don't even
Yeah.
have, you don't even have to do 80 anymore. You're set. Your 80 is.
Hey.
Yeah, somebody locked me down, and I was like, okay, cool.
Vows are vows. They say the good and the bad, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't even putting it 100%. I was like, wow, you're a real one.
Shout out to him. Shout out to him for
Gun
taking that 80.
shot sound effect.
But yeah, like we've been gone for like a month and some change. I think this will make it a month. I
wasn't
just stopped counting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
stopped counting. And the big reason why I took the break was and I think I told y'all when y'all was here was, initially I had a episode idea planned and then that got switched over to the following week. Then that person that was supposed to show up just went MIA on me like the couple days prior to the day for us to record. So that kind of like really had me upset and really discouraged me. I was like, you know what? I'm really tired of like running down on people and making sure everything's all set, creating structures for these episodes, and then people don't fucking show up. I was like, let me just take a break. And then, shout out to Mandy because Mandy's like triple OG podcast queen, podcast fucking goddess, or whatever you want to call it. But in the past few weeks, she's been like promoting the show for the episode that she was on, and then that kind of was like, fuck, I can't be on break, and then I ain't got no new shit for the people. So I was like, yo, let's, capping on a good solid 4 weeks of me just sitting back, relaxing, recollecting my thoughts, and
Watching
taking
the competition,
Yeah,
gathering notes, gathering intel.
Word. Watching all the waste men out here and all that. So
I've been using wasteman a lot lately. It's a funny ass term.
So yeah, I was like, you know what, I'm cap this off on 4 weeks and then just come back with a little bang. And I was really thinking about what kind of episode I wanted to do, and then I was like, you know what? Because initially this was something I kind of pitched to Mandy, and even we could do like a whole separate thing with it. But I really wanted to craft like an episode or just like a little panel of people for, that's in the podcast world or people that listen to podcasts. Because a lot of times, for the few times that I have been like stopped in the street by people, they usually tell me like, yo, how do you guys actually do what y'all do? So it's like, it probably made sense to like do an episode on podcasting in general. Since it's still new in the urban space, and I don't think people realize that, podcasting's been out for a good like 15 plus years, if I'm not mistaken. But for the most part, for the urban space, it just recently got popular, and it's still not technically accepted. Like, there's a lot of people doing numbers out here, but there's still a lot of people that's like, they can't grasp the concept of listening to a podcast. So I just felt like it made sense to do an episode on that. And that's why I was blessed enough to grab Erin here to, ask us some questions.
Okay.
And you can chime in as well because you are a podcaster.
I do be podcasting.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I be podcasting.
That's a great idea. Right. Put that on a t-shirt.
Hashtag swag, hashtag merch.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like ask me about my podcast.
You be doing numbers out here too. I don't know why you be acting like that.
Thank you. Not aggy. We just be talking our shit, and then people be like, "Oh, okay, we'll listen." I'm just like, "Wow, you guys don't have shit else to do." Thank you.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of podcasts where it's like, "Yo, we just be here talking shit," and people like want to listen to us, and it's just like, "Wow." I'm just like, your shit must be special.
I mean,
see, I be trying to tell you.
We're
don't
comedic
listen.
sometimes. Like sometimes it's funny.
Sometimes.
So some people cackle.
Yeah,
I
cackle
here and there.
during recording, so that's just me. But yeah. Are you ready to get into this shit? Are you ready to like
ready for the
dive
shakedown,
in?
Steven?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm about
I was
to
born ready.
I'm about to like get into you and like ask you the most personal questions.
No, you're not.
She's about to cut that ass.
Wow.
All right, Aaron, begin.
No, she's not.
Oh my god. Let me live. Like, you don't know what I have planned. You don't know what.
It's everything that's in the notes.
Wait, time out. You don't know. I could have lied to you. All right, whatever. So, what inspired you to make the show?
I don't even know if a lot of people even realize this, because I think we did this on the first initial episode and never discussed it ever again. But initially, yeah, like for real, not even joking. Like initially, the premise of the show was to promote a book that I was writing, and I never finished the book because procrastination is big in my household.
Yeah.
So
I live in procrastination.
Procrastination.
You're on camera.
Procrastination.
I can't speak. Procrastination nation. That's where I live.
Oh,
My
gotcha.
God, it took me way too long to say.
It's
That's
okay.
because I shouldn't be saying
no,
it.
no judging, kid. No
It's
judging.
also not a real
Y'all
place.
both were like,
Keep in mind.
It's good for the camera.
I live there though. I'm always procrastinating.
Yeah, so I never finished the book. The premise of the book, if anybody cares, was like how men,
We
because
don't
the book is never coming out.
Ouch.
But the premise of the book was like how men need to be better for themselves and for like the people that love them and adore them and be in relationships.
Why are you not gonna finish this?
Time, money, lazy.
That's the number one. I feel like
Yeah, lazy.
Like you can self-publish. I feel like that's a really.
I got like maybe 10 pages.
Okay. Is this like 10 pages double space, 10 pages single space? Like give me some. You know what I'm saying?
It's definitely single space.
Okay. Is this like 12.5? Is this?
Did you put a heading, Steven?
I feel like I'm in college again.
I'm just asking you like about.
It's literally
details.
in my notes. I still have the notes.
Okay, you write in your notes?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I write my short stories in my notes too.
Yeah, I used to do short stories too. Long time ago.
Yeah,
Long
I be
time
out
ago.
here writing.
You just be out here.
She
You
be
be
out
out here
here.
podcasting. You be out here writing.
Right.
You just be doing a whole bunch of verbs.
I do.
You be verbing. Basically.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, the book was was based on that, and I wanted to do the podcast to like promote the book because a lot of the topics that you would discuss on that was part of the book, you could have a conversation in podcast form. So that was basically it. I came up with the idea in like January of 2016, and I was doing a bunch of research and things of that nature. Me and Vixon would talk back and forth about it because we was both starting to listen to podcasts ourselves. And then I think it was September. That's when we finally, initially we bought equipment, bullshit ass equipment for like $100.
That was a dub. No Dubway.
That was bullshit ass equipment for like $100, and we was trying to figure that shit out. I still remember when you came to the crib and we was just like, this is gonna suck.
How is this gonna work?
And crazy thing was, prior to even buying the equipment, I was doing research on like, where am I gonna record, and I couldn't find anything. And then it was after I bought the equipment and the shit was looking like a dub, I was like, let me do one last Google search, and that's where I found Dubway Studios, which we're in right now. For those who watch the YouTube page,
conveniently located in New York City,
Financial District.
That's a plug, ladies and gentlemen.
But yeah, so I found Dubway. Initially, me and Nieema was like, yo, we could do this one episode, see how we like the space, and we just fucking loved it. Like the energy, the vibe, everybody over here was just extremely cool, and yeah, we just been recording ever since.
Okay. That was a lovely story. That was crazy. I didn't even know that.
Really? See? I'm sharing with the people.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm one of the people.
Oh, God.
Well, you like answering all the questions now.
No, I didn't.
Now you answered like the first 3. How does podcasting work for you? I just want everybody to know I did not write these questions. But go ahead. I'm here for them.
I guess for me, I won't say it's therapeutic, but for me, it's like, I like creating, and I just like creating. So, with me having a 9-to-5 and being there 5 days out the week, I thoroughly enjoy, like, yo, I gotta get into the studio to talk about some shit. I like crafting shit. I like coming up with a topic and breaking it down in certain ways, or, connecting with other podcasters or just people from different walks of life and, allowing them to tell their story. So I won't say it's like therapeutic, but it's something I like thoroughly enjoy. And, even when I'm at work, all I'm thinking about is the next episode, or people I want to possibly sit down with, or, even past episodes that, I feel probably didn't come out the best. Like, how could I have done that better? Or maybe my energy was off, or, things of that nature. So podcasting for me is definitely like an outlet, just as a form of expression. Like, for people that really know me, I have a really laid back and chill personality. I talk a lot of shit, but for the most part, hey, relax.
Please do. We're talking.
Thanks for the cosign.
Of course.
But yeah, like, for people that really know me, like, I have a really laid back and chill demeanor. Like, I'm more of an introvert. I'm a homebody and things of that nature. But podcasting allows me to, like, step out my shell a little bit and, like, showcase my personality more. So I think, it's definitely an outlet that I appreciate.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way about, like, podcasting too. It's just, like, conversations, like, between yourself and other people, but also like between you and your audiences too, because, like, they respond. It's just like, it's cool.
Yeah, I always
no, it is, like, I just feel like, for me personally, it's like, for me, it gives me a reason to, like, hold shit in, just because like, I want to wait to record.
Yeah, like, I find myself like forcing conversations with other people to see what they think, so it could spark an idea for me to talk about on the show.
Yeah, like, I hold a bunch of shit in, like, and not take notes, clearly, because I have one note a week, but I'll hold it, and I'll wait until, like, I see AJ, and I'm just like, all right, cool, like, I have so much shit I want to talk about, just because, like, and I can't even text her about it during the week, because then it, like, kills it, and, like, we can't have the real conversation in person, so. Yeah,
like, me and Niema's dynamic has completely changed since we started the show. Like, we used to be on the phone for like 3-4 hours, almost on like a daily or every other day basis. And since we started the show, I was like, I don't want to waste any content.
Right.
And there's so many gems that we give out, whether it's like knowledgeable stuff or just stupid shit that we may say.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to give away any of that stuff. So it's like, we'll text here and there, but for the most part, we wait till Sunday to come in and just act a complete fool. And it even makes it better because, one, we don't even see each other like that. But then since we even limit the communication even more, it's like once we get in the same space, we don't know how to act.
Yeah.
We don't know how to act.
I would say the same for us. Like, that's the reason why we started ours, because we were like always on the phone. So I was like, why not record this shit, girl? But
it makes sense.
We just stopped.
Make it make sense, and it makes sense.
I'm not saying we make sense. I'm just saying it's the same for us. What's the biggest misconceptions that you think, I guess, people have about podcasting or your podcast? Or you as a podcaster?
Oh, look at you.
I mean, I'm
freestyling. Look at you.
That was legit. Hold up.
Where's the funk flex bomb? Let's see. Biggest misconceptions about podcasts. I think a lot of people, even though y'all are great at doing it, I think that's probably a question I probably should ask other podcasters, because I know y'all great at, just kind of winging it while y'all record, but I think a lot of people just assume that's how everybody does it, and I think a lot of people actually do sit down and take the time out to, craft out, or even just structure their show, depending on how your show is set up.
You do that.
I mean, the way our show is set up is like we don't do pop culture, which a lot of other podcasters do. So it's like for us to hit a topic, it's like we got to make sure we're addressing all the different things that are necessary for that specific topic.
Right.
So that's why I'm so meticulous when it comes to like the structure, because it's important. First of all, it's an hour show. Like I got to make sure the shit lasts an hour.
Right.
And then secondly, I want to have a conversation that makes sense. Like I don't want to be talking about fatherhood and then we bring up like some random shit that has nothing to do with the topic. So it's meticulous in that sense. I think people get confused. I don't know if there's any misconceptions about me as a podcaster. People don't really say much about me. I know over time I've changed as a podcaster when I initially started until up until this point. But I don't know if there's any misconceptions. If anybody has any, by all means.
I mean, what about like you as a person?
I don't know. Like I remember having a conversation with somebody, and it was like, if you're an introvert, how you gonna do a podcast? Like that doesn't make sense, because that would be the complete opposite.
That's stupid. That don't make no sense.
Listen.
I just feel like no, because like, when you podcast, you're by yourself, or you're like in an enclosed space. So it's just like, how is that?
Well, to be fair, we know a podcaster that literally does it by himself. It's the Only Child podcast.
Oh yeah, Only Child Syndrome.
Only Child Syndrome, my bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude literally does a podcast like by himself.
Yeah, I don't think you can't be an introvert. I'm an introvert. Like I love being.
I think they probably looked at it like, oh, because you're an introvert, like you don't want to share yourself with the world.
When you're an introvert, you think your opinion is like amazing and fantastic, and you want everybody to hear it. You just don't want to talk to them in person. That's fair. Exactly why you record it and share it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the only thing was like, if you're an introvert, like how could you podcast? And I was like, but it's perfect. Like I don't have to be in front of a huge crowd. And that was one thing. Like we were supposed to do a live show maybe last year or the year before that. No, last year. And that didn't end up working out because I got suspended from my job and couldn't afford no live show. But whatever.
That's neither here nor there.
It's pending. Let's just say it's pending.
I've grown.
Clearly.
But I'll even planning that, I was like, yo, how the fuck I'm gonna do this? Because I don't care for crowds, especially.
I don't care for crowds.
Especially if for some people that's expecting like this whole grand performance. Because we've been to Horrible Decisions live, and we've been to like the Thick Podcast live, and like they have like a huge setup and everything. It was like that shit had me like stressed out for a bit. But I wouldn't know of any like misconceptions that people would have about me as a podcaster.
That's fair. I feel like people always say I look like a bitch.
Really?
Wow.
That's wild.
That's a hot take.
Yeah. Is it?
Now, why would they think that? No, seriously.
Who's interviewing Hugh here? Like, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
This is a triangle conversation.
No, yeah.
Now, you're not.
I don't know why. But, like, my whole life, people have been like, you look like a mean person.
Really?
And then, like, I recently went to my best friend's graduation, and, like, her friend was there. And I was like, oh, hi. Like, I don't know her. So I was like, hi. And then, like, later that day, she said the girl wrote her, like, yeah, your best friend seems, like, really mean or, like, really intimidating. And I was like, I'm neither of them.
I've gotten intimidating before, and I never understood that either.
I guess it's just because I don't look like I care, which is fair.
It's the introvert, definitely.
Same.
It's definitely the introvert.
Yeah, like people tell me I have resting bitch face, and I'm like, yep, sure do. But like,
was my ex-girlfriend.
Like, it's not something I can help. But it's like, if you get to know me, you'll be like, yeah, she's not mean at all. I mean, unless I have to.
The ex-girlfriend was horrible outside of the face too. So.
Oh, well, that's why she's your ex-girlfriend.
Thank you. But, shout out to my girl V. But anyway, the point is, yes, I mean the introversion is probably key to all that.
Maybe. I'm just never impressed with much, so.
If you don't care for much people, then what's the point?
You got high standards. Good for you.
Sure.
Miss 80%.
Like, I'm never aiming that high.
It's a hard 80%.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's like I'm aiming high. Do I hit high? No. But I'm aiming there. That's what counts.
You took the shot. You didn't even care if it went in or not.
No.
Hey, went off the backboard.
There you go. This kind of goes into what you're talking about.
Oh, and then another probably misconception. Nah, it just it just hit me now. People think that we make money.
Oh.
Like, yeah,
that's a cackle. That's a whole cackle.
Just so you people know, I take a loss every week coming here.
Steven sees red all the time.
You did not take a loss. You just said it's therapeutic. You gain a lot from it.
We're talking finances now.
Oh, you're talking
strictly finances.
You take
Strictly finances.
Okay.
Definitely a loss
That's
every week.
fair.
And I had to explain to somebody, it was like, unless you have ads, and even ads you don't get paid for.
Yeah.
Most ads, for people that don't know, you get a discount code. When the person uses the discount code, you get a portion of their sale.
Oh.
So if nobody uses the discount code, you don't get shit.
Wow.
So nobody besides like the top tier people, unless you have like a Patreon account, and you,
Patreon.
And top tier people that's pulling in like 500,000 listens a week, those are probably the people that are getting money, and that's the 1%. Everybody else, especially for me, since I record at a studio, like y'all record at your crib, so you have your own equipment and everything. So I take a loss every week to record, but. No. And anybody that even moves around and acting as if, like, because they're podcasting, they're making big money, it's a lie.
Oh.
It's a lie.
Wow, exposed.
I mean, you definitely have to invest in the brand, so obviously
you have to invest in yourself, and you've been investing for quite some time.
It's 2 years. September will make it 2 years.
He's literally counting every penny.
Yeah, I mean, I will too.
Even though I said I take the loss, I never really think about the money. I'm always concerned more about the content.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm always concerned about the content.
Like, if the content is trash, then what's the point?
We never care about content.
Good job.
But y'all doing numbers, so it works.
People care, yeah. So do you feel any pressure from podcasting? I know you were talking about the live show and like feeling like it would have to be like, on a certain level.
That, crafting that, and then also having something worthy of people listening to every week. Yeah. Like, that's a lot, especially since we don't do pop culture. Because people that do pop culture, you could just easily pull a topic. As opposed to us, it's like, I gotta find something that's worthy of speaking about every week.
But I think that's what sets you apart too, though. Because you're not just like talking about pop culture. You're picking like something that like affects millennials or affects like people in certain communities. So it's just like, it sets you apart. So it is something worth listening to just because it's not what anybody can hear anywhere else.
That was so nice of you.
That's a nice take.
I feel like
I'm heartwarmed.
And why do people call you a bitch? I just don't understand.
Oh my god.
The misconceptions are unreal.
Shout out to the hubby.
No.
He got himself a real one. Wow.
I mean, shout out to him because I'm cute. But no, I feel like.
An inch, they take him out.
Oh, get out of here! No, I do feel like that. I feel like even when we did the episode with you, like when we left, I was just like, that was great. Just because like on ours we do pop culture. We talk about like topics that we want to talk about, but it's always like super brief. And with you, it's just like you said, you like attack it from multiple viewpoints, and it's like great because it's like. I think if I sat down with her and we talked about how creepy guys are, it would be like from our perspective, and like you coming from like an outside perspective was cool. So you be out here doing shit.
Sometimes.
You know, intriguing conversations are being had. I was gonna use another word, but I can't.
What taboo word? Okay, you know what?
I was thinking of something synonymous with intriguing.
Okay, we'll save that for afterwards, I guess. I don't know how scandalous this word is.
No, it wasn't scandalous. I literally just couldn't think of a word.
Okay. Fair.
But, you know. All right. What's the difference between you podcasting when you started and you as a podcaster now? I know you said you changed.
I definitely know when I initially started off, like, I was really, like, straight to it. Like, even with the structures, I was just answering the questions. Like, I wasn't really, I was, like I said, I'm laid back, introvert, so I didn't really want to share every aspect of my life with people. But I felt like, if the show's going to grow and be where I want it to be, like, you got to show different sides of yourself. Sometimes you got to admit to embarrassing stories. Or just show more of your personality and for people to warm up to you. Because that's how I normally am when I meet new people. Obviously, as an introvert, you don't like to meet new people. Because you got to warm up to them, see if, because, like I said, I talk a lot of shit. So some people gauge how you talk to them differently. So I don't just be off the rip just being who I am. So over time, I had to, like, grow and things of that nature. And even I would always ask Nieema for, like, feedback that she would get. Because normally if you ask your own people, they just going to be like, oh, it was cool, whatever. So I asked Nieema about the feedback she would get, and she was like, oh, yeah, like, this person said this person said that about you. And it's like they starting to get more of a connection with you. So over the time, I was able to, like, showcase who I am more and just showcase more of my personality and just how funny I could be at times, or even just the real shit. Like, again, shout out to Mandy. Like, a lot of the feedback that she got was like, oh, they was appreciative of a black man talking about black women and their issues from that standpoint. And a lot of times you don't get to see that. So I'm not sure if I did that episode earlier on when we first started, if I was able to show that facet of myself. So you grow as a person and you grow as a podcaster. Like, the more, even till this day, I still get nervous as soon as we start recording. But
or why?
Just cause.
Okay.
Just
the
nervous.
rush of the thrill. The rush of the thrill.
But yeah, it's like as you grow as a person, you gotta grow as a podcaster because you get used to it more. You start to pick on certain things, especially with your co-hosts, little pockets here and there, or things like catchphrases and things of that nature. So you get to become even more of a professional and more of a master of your craft.
I agree to that. I feel like when I started, I was like really not like reserved, because like when am I ever? But not reserved, but it's more like because AJ's like so like blunt about everything, I would be like the opposite. So I would just be like, well, okay. Like I would just be like,
that's exactly
like,
how it was.
Yeah, and I was just like, I can't do this, and nobody's gonna understand like our dynamic if I continue to be this way, because they have to see like why we're friends or like how this even started. So yeah, cool. What were your favorite episodes?
Obviously the Mandy episode, because Mandy's like, again, the podcast goddess. That was a really good one. Usually episodes like that, because that's not the first time I had like a really, really good episode content wise. Even before we started your episode, we was having a conversation in the lobby, and I forgot what we was talking about, but it tied into the whole creepy niggas thing. So that's the same thing that happened with Mandy. Like, as soon as I came into the studio, greeted Mandy or whatever, and we just had a little casual conversation, and then she just started going off about somebody, and then I was like, this is perfect, because this ties into everything that we're gonna be talking about.
Keep that energy.
So yeah, keep that energy. So yeah, definitely the Mandy episode. Let's see, we did a fuckboy episode that was pretty hilarious, because I got testimonials from like all my homegirls to tell me like all the fuck shit niggas do, so that was funny. Let's see, what else was really good? I'm trying to think. Do you have any personal favorites?
There was that episode where dude from Only Child Syndrome, he came. It was like the Friends episode. Like you and Nieema did like a quiz, or
we
Friends quiz or something.
Let's see, what else? I don't know. Yeah, I would have to go back and revisit them, because the way I podcast is the same way like I used to take tests back in the day. Like, I would take a test and have all the information prior, and then finish the test or whatever, and then I'll see like a classmate that has the same class after, and they'll be like, yo, what was on the test? And I'm like, bro, I really have no fucking idea. All the information will just be gone.
Who are your favorite guests?
You and AJ.
This is a lie. You're just guessing it.
Mandy. Tabria, because she was so nice. that was the first person that we interviewed that neither me or Nieema knew.
Okay.
Although I'm not a fan of that episode because it was way too early, so I don't think we got the best sort of content out of that episode. But she was just really nice.
Right.
Okay.
Especially she had actually just came off a flight and she came straight to the studio. So shout out to Tabria Majors. Yeah, Tabria, Mandy, my homegirl Aura that was another good episode. Ronald Draper, like I liked all the guests to be quite honest.
Oh yeah, homeboy Antoine, shout out to him.
Antoine, shout out to him, and he's about to have his first child. So, congrats.
No, happy for you.
That was telling.
Babies are a lot.
Babies are a lot, especially when you're having them.
Yeah. Specifically
shout
when
outs
you're
to
having
women
them.
who have to give birth.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot.
Appreciate y'all for holding it down.
Yeah.
Holding it down forever.
Oh my God.
Good job, Steve. The biggest shout out in history.
Oh my God.
But yeah, like I appreciate all my guests. I mean, obviously the ones that have that bring us the biggest numbers, we really appreciate. But yeah, I think all the guests were all necessary, and they all came and contributed something different. There's no guest that I've ever looked back and was like, probably shouldn't haven't done that one.
I mean,
okay. So we're.
This is not about me.
Oh, okay. So then,
were
there, so you said there were no guests that you disliked.
Yeah, there probably weren't no guests that I disliked. They're probably like guests, like even my homegirl Aura, who has her own podcast. Like, I don't think I did enough research for that specific episode.
Okay.
Cause she has a crazy story, and although we're cool, we're not cool where I know all the aspects of her life.
Okay.
So I think if I was to have a conversation with her prior to doing that episode, I probably would have crafted it a little bit better.
Okay. But that was the only episode you didn't like?
There's been times like I was sick or Nieema was sick or, you had like a crazy week and the energy be off in the studio. So I know a specific episode that was like, I think it was me, Manny, Nieema, and then Niema's homegirl was there, and I had just came off a fever. And like I barely spoke that whole fucking episode because I was just like, why am I here? What is life?
What is life? This is it. The last episode.
What is podcasting?
I can die right now and
on
air.
Wow.
On air. But yeah, those are usually like the bad ones, or like the times where it's a really hectic week. Like you always joke about how professional I am.
You are.
But like if there's a really hectic week and we really don't have a chance to like figure out what we're talking about, and we usually like draft up something last minute. There's been a few episodes where it's like shit cut short, or cause the shit was just crafted last minute. It's not great content wise, in my opinion. I mean, usually the feedback don't say that, but for me, I always look back and it's like, you know what, I could have did better.
Yeah.
I always go based off of like, as soon as we wrap up, like how do I feel energy wise? Like, is there good energy in the room?
Okay.
Is there okay energy? Did I find myself laughing a lot?
Yeah.
And usually I could dictate like, all right, was this a good episode or not?
Okay. That's fair. I feel like we had like 2 episodes where we were beefing. Like, but
I've made that clear that there was episodes that me and Nieema was legit beefing. I don't even know how we maintained a level of professionalism on those episodes.
Like,
and nobody could tell, but it was literally like we would come to the studio, do whatever, and then as soon as we leave, I ain't talking to you till next Sunday.
Yeah. That's happened to us, and it's just been like, and I'm just surprised people couldn't feel it either, because it was just like, she would come to my house, I set everything up, we recorded, she'd be like, okay, bye, and she would dip, and it would just be like we recorded one episode where like in the middle of it, she was like, stop recording, and so like I shut it off, and she was like, I don't want to do this, like we're fighting, and this doesn't even feel good, like let's talk about whatever's going on with us, and we'll record next week. And I was like, alright, cool, and we just stopped recording, and we just like spent the rest of the evening like talking it out. It was serious.
Alexa, cue drinks. I'm obsessed.
Like, she literally, like, in the middle of recording, she was like, can we just stop? I was like, wow, okay.
That's all.
Sure. I mean, but, like,
Cut
I appreciate
the fucking mic off.
I appreciate it, though, because I was just like, you clearly feel like this is not going to be a good episode. But, before that, we would just record it, and we was just like, fuck it.
Yeah, thankfully, it's never spilled into, like, episodes. We've had, like, little spats here and there. but nothing like overblown where it's like, yo, like we was legit beefing. Because I've had conversations with other podcasters that I'm not going to mention because I'm not spilling the tea here.
Hey,
but I've had conversations with other podcasters and they'll be like, yo, we was fucking beefing on air and the audience heard us and I'm just waiting for this person to opt out. I'm like, oh.
Well, I mean, I think because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm pretty sure that, you know what I'm saying, you know, you work with somebody close for some time, obviously your friends or whatever, just connecting through the podcast. And once you have a type of disagreement and stuff, you're going to do your best for it to not bleed out, but at the same time, like behind the scenes, it definitely affects, you know, the podcast, the production, and, you know, working together. So it's very delicate and it's very interesting how, like, you know, people or at least hosts of a podcast are able to like work through that and kind of like still be able to make that content and for people to still like consume it without it being like, I don't know about these episodes. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think it also speaks volumes into like our relationship because even prior to me even approaching Nieema, I was, to be honest, I don't even think I told her this because hot take. But I was looking at just a pool of people that I wanted to speak down with and to sit down with to do the show. And, you know, initially I was looking at people with numbers because I just knew like in order for this shit to grow, especially for me to not have a big social media following, I wanted somebody that had a following, right. So the numbers would just immediately translate. And even going through that, it was like, you know what, I should do the show with somebody I know that I'm going to gel with on air and that the content is just going to come out naturally, whether it's something that we written down or if it's just something that just comes off the top of our heads. So with us even beefing, it was like we have respect for each other and we have respect for the show so that when we would come into the studio and sit down, like we still doing what we're supposed to do. Right. So you gotta appreciate her for that.
It's hard.
Yeah, shout out to Nieema.
When you do it with your best friend, because it's like we got to a point where like the only time we see each other would be to record, and it was trash because it was just like we were friends before this, like we hung out before this, and like now we're making it a thing where like we're only meeting to do one thing and we're going back to our respective spaces. So we had to like sit down and make time for our friendship outside of the podcast.
Aww.
Because it's hard.
What a shed a tear.
I mean,
what about your friends? People can't see me. I'm doing a body roll.
A whole body roll. Like I'm imitating him so y'all can get into it.
Oh, we need a drone.
So how do you feel about urban podcasting?
Well, I said it earlier. Like urban podcasting is still in its baby stages. Like, you know, there's your few, like the Read, the Horrible Decisions, the Thick Podcast. There's a bunch of other ones, Bodega Boys. Yeah, there's a bunch of those. Most of them record in this, you know, studio. So shouts out to them. But there's a few of them that's doing their numbers and they've been able to cross over to different markets. But for people of color, like it's still, you know, a new space for us. And even from the time I started to the time to now, it's like there's so many fucking podcasts that have started. And, you know, eventually, this is why I don't worry about the money spending for studio time, because it's like I know eventually it's going to be a point where, because we, as people of color, we run shit. Like, culture moves based on the shit that we do.
True.
So eventually, those corporations are going to start making those phone calls to us, because eventually be like, look, all the audience and all the attention is going. How many things that go viral based off of guests or based off the shit that happens in podcasting? So eventually, that money is going to trickle down. So that's why I keep doing.
Just waiting for that trickle.
Oh yeah, my phone number is always available.
Oh wow.
for that call, but eventually the money will trickle down, and you know, just in that space is like if you really here for the love of it and for the content, you're gonna be here for the long haul. Like, if I definitely did not think I was gonna be, I never even thought about whether I'm gonna be here 2 years later. There's been times where I was like, yo, what the fuck are we gonna talk about this week? And this is episode 77. Like, we've taken breaks here and there, but that's still crazy to me. Like, even when other podcasters post, like, what Joe Budden's on, like, what, episode 170 something?
Yeah, 170.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like, and 170 is not that far away.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, his structure has changed throughout those years, too. So it's not like he's had this similar structure as he has now. Like in his beginning,
yeah.
So his show was completely
To
different.
be honest, I couldn't fuck with his show early on. I felt like it was just him, just having this dominant voice, and whoever he had as guests, he would just speak over them. Like, fuck your opinion. Like, it don't matter. I'm the artist, so whatever you got to say is irrelevant. And it wasn't until, I guess, they possibly have talks and they've gone through their changes, like you just said, where it became a more, it became a body of work that you can appreciate more, because now you're hearing all these different voices.
It's a conversation.
And, it became more of a conversation as opposed to, like, this one-sided opinion. So it's like, for the people that, now that they've seen, like, a couple people have gone viral, or a couple people have gotten, some more attention, you've seen a lot of people that try to jump into the space and doing shit. And that's why I'm very selective on who I listen to. One, because I don't want to be heavily influenced by others. And then two, a lot of this shit be trash, to be quite honest.
Okay.
It's just facts.
Hot take.
That's not a hot take. It's just the facts.
Well, hot takes could be facts.
It's just the facts. And then people like that, is like, I don't even pay them any mind, because I know eventually you're going to phase yourself out.
Wow.
Because it's literally dedication to this.
You'll
Like,
find yourself at the door.
Do you feel like it's oversaturated then?
it's definitely oversaturated, but at the same time, it takes a lot for somebody to press play.
Okay.
So it's unlike, other stuff where it's kind of being force-fed.
Yeah.
Like music is force-fed. You go to your app, there's a playlist there or artist there that you kind of being forced to listen to. Radio, you have to listen to X amount of people. With podcasts, it's like, I have to subscribe to listen to your shit.
You don't have to.
You don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
You don't, but at the same time, you still have to press play. So if I don't want to listen to your shit, I don't have to listen to your shit. So for those people that, are just jumping in it for the sake of it, or think like, it's overnight shit, it's like, nah. I already knew coming into this, like, because of who Nieema is and because of who I am, we don't have a huge social media following.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to work on this for a long period of time before, we're going to get the sort of numbers that, the other podcasters that's in that 1% will. And it does help that, you collaborate with other people and bring you into new audiences as well. So, it's oversaturated, but I feel like I'm prideful about the product that I put out. So we will rise to the top eventually.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask a question. I'm trying to figure out how to ask.
Is this a freestyle question?
This is a freestyle.
Is this
question.
the freestyle
shit.
question?
She's giving us
Okay.
2?
Oh my god. You're putting too much pressure on me. Okay. So like talking about oversaturation and stuff like that, like what do you feel like separates your podcast from other podcasts, or what do you think is like special about your podcast? Because I feel like everybody puts out a podcast because they feel like what they have to say is important, number one, and number two, they feel like people want to hear what they have to say, right? So, and oftentimes, like you said, like you'll listen to a podcast and you'll be like, this shit is fucking trash, and it's just like, what gives you the right to say that shit is fucking trash?
Yes,
like
Steven,
what
what gives you the
separates
right?
you?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Now it's crossfire. Now he's in the hot seat.
No,
That's like that scene from The Office where they all had to go. Well, one, you mentioned it earlier. We don't do pop culture, and we always were a topic-based show, but initially, early on, we did talk about like pop culture or shit of the week. And again, I keep mentioning her name, but I have to give her all the fucking credit is to Mandy. Like, the first time we had her on, we had conversations with her, and she was like, y'all doing pop culture, but it don't look like y'all really enjoy doing it. Like, why are y'all doing it? And he was like, you know what, you have a point. Like, it makes no sense that we're doing it. So we took that out of the show, and I think, like, what separates us is that not only is it a topic-based show, it's a topic-based show that relates to people. Like, I find most of the feedback that I do get from people is like, oh, I was listening and I was responding while I was listening. And that's the shit that that allows me to know, like, okay, y'all doing what you're supposed to do. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what I'm crafting is something that people actually want to hear. And I think what separates us is, like, the content is something that's relatable. It's not, we are probably a black podcast, but the conversations.
I thought this was a white one. I gotta go. Thank you, everyone.
Unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe.
we're probably black podcasts, but the topics that we discuss relate to people of whoever.
Yeah.
Like, you could be Hispanic, you could be from the Europe. We have, people from overseas that listen to us.
Shout out to Pakistan.
Crossing borders and shit.
No, there's nobody in Pakistan.
Actually, they might.
There might be.
Check
I
it
know
out.
Dubai and I know London for
ISIS
a fact.
does fuck with us, okay?
Oh,
ISIS.
wow.
Just to be
Okay.
clear, okay?
I never really fucked with Trump, to be quite honest.
Okay.
So
Okay. For sure.
She says that she creeps out the door.
Yeah, no, okay, well, thanks for everything.
But yeah, it's like, the content itself, like, it's something that could relate to any household. It's like, the premise of it was like conversations that you would have with your friends, but it's on an audio platform. And I don't know if me and Nieema ever said this, but we don't want to come off as like experts or shit. Like, we are just saying our opinion and our experiences, and it's something you could relate to or something you disagree with. And I think the standpoints that we try to take on is not only as people of color, but also as men and women, and also as people with a rational mindset. Because I think a lot of times you have people that are very biased in the approach that they take, and it's like, we're always open to conversations. And even if it happens vice versa, Nieema may bring up a point that I may not, necessarily agree with, and eventually I may come around and be like, you know what? I do agree with you, and maybe vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, I may bring up something that she may not agree with, and then she make her look at things from a different perspective. So I think that's what we try to achieve every week when we come to the studio with it.
Okay.
So I think that's what separates us from everybody else. Because and even Mandy had told me this, is like, you'll listen to The Read, you'll listen to, Bodega Boys, or you listen to Joe Budden Podcast. They cover most of the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it's like, why am I listening to anybody else
Right.
if you're not a celebrity, or you're not this person that I fell in love with as a personality prior, or has this grand personality, so why am I going to subscribe to your show to listen to it? So you have to be completely different. This is why our Horrible Decisions will work, because it's they speaking about a specific topic that is not going to be covered by more of the bigger outlets.
Yeah.
So we just try to be different, and I think that's what separates us from everybody else.
Wow, like we basically do pop culture on mine, so I don't know. I guess.
But y'all take it from a different approach, though. Like,
No,
y'all are legit hilarious, and that's when I say, podcasts are trash. It's like, if I listen to you, like, you have to make me laugh within the first 5 minutes.
Oh.
Something has to grab my attention.
Yeah.
After that, it's like, it's a dub. Because we already living in a time where you getting so much information so fast.
Yeah.
Like, most people's attention span is short.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I don't fall in that category. But after X amount of time, you gotta be captivating me in a certain way. I'm either gonna agree with you or disagree with you, or you gotta make me laugh. If it's not one of those, it's like, all right, shutting this off.
Yeah.
On to the next one.
My life is a joke, so.
Ouch. But respectful.
No, it's entirely true.
No.
It is. But what are your goals for the show? Like, what are you trying to do?
I mean, get the fucking bag.
I mean, always.
Ka-ching.
All the fucking coins. I just want to, just create great content at the end of the day. Like, eventually you want to grow, you want to do big numbers, and I just want to be able to network and sit down with people. And I think that's why the people that I do bring on as guests, or, they may specialize in certain things, but I want them to show, like, different facets of who they are. And I think that's why Mandy, even to this day, again, another shout out, because she's fucking amazing.
She
We're
paid
keeping
for
count.
these.
That's
Like,
full shout-outs.
I know.
But that's why Mandy still posts the show that she was on over a month ago, is because she was able to show a facet of herself she doesn't get to show on her podcast or even the other podcasts that she's been on. So I think just the show itself, I want to grow to the point where, we're bringing in money, of course, but we're bringing in money, and then also I could take the whole squad out to fucking LA to interview somebody, or we're going to Florida to interview somebody, or going to London or whoever, or even having live shows eventually. That's something I still want to do. So I just want to just keep growing and keep growing the audio, the listener base, and eventually have merch and things of that nature, and just keep pushing boundaries and just trying to be as creative as possible.
Wow, that was a super professional answer. I
Well,
mean, yeah. Those are great goals.
I mean, what are the goals for y'all?
Ours is just like to get fucking paid. Like, no, it's like to get
I mean, isn't that what
paid.
we're all here for?
Like to get paid, but also I just feel like I think the goal of like us doing the podcast was just because like we want the conversations we have to be conversations that other people have. We want feedback. Like we just want conversations to start. And if it's like people start them and bring them to us, or we start them and bring them to people, like that's what we want. Like
you want to just make that connection. Because again, like I said, me and Nieema never want to come across like we're experts on anything. It's like these are what we believe. These are the things that we believe in. This is the reason why. We want you to agree or disagree, and mainly we really want you to have these conversations outside of listening to the show. Like, oh, by the way, I was just listening to Sophisticated Ignorance, and Steven said this, or Nieema said this. What do you think about that? Because that's how I interact with some of my friends. It's like, yo, I just heard this. From your perspective as a woman, how you feel about that? So that's basically, what we want to do with the show is to just keep growing and keep connecting with people.
I think that was it. Did you want to do the Q&A, or did you want me to do the Q&A?
I mean, it's not much of a Q&A.
Let's make it stretch for the next couple minutes, shall we? Don't be humble.
I mean, it's only really one question because the only other question we got, I already answered. It was part of the show. But shout out to her, because I think she actually did a video of her at work listening to Sophisticated Ignorance.
Oh, shit.
You.
So shout out to _girl from Atlanta. And she has her own podcast, The Wind Down Pod, on Instagram. So shout out to her.
Shout outs.
She asked, what made me want to start a podcast, and I already answered that. So, but still, shout out to her. And then that's a big thing, is like something that I didn't really encounter or think about prior to starting the show was like how we've become like this whole big community, and like how we connect. Like we become very cool, and that was the first time of me meeting you. Like we barely spoke prior to.
He didn't fuck with me though.
We barely spoke prior to that one episode, and then we started to realize like we had a lot of connections. Like you're a foodie, introvert, and you low key the neighbor.
So we put my information out there, but
nobody knows where I live either.
Yet.
But I've just noticed like it's a huge community of people, and even again, I know you're joking, but you like put me on this pedestal of some sort.
It's true.
It's not, but even the energy that I get from like other podcasters when they come here is like, yo, y'all are different. It's like, no, we just regular people. Like, we don't do anything special or out of the ordinary or anybody else. Like, we are just regular.
Speak for yourself,
humble.
Steven.
So humble.
We are regular people.
We are regular digglers, though. I think we're proud of that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being regular and being really good at it, though. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm really good at being regular.
No, like being regular, but being really good at what you do. Like, I think you taking like your opinion of yourself is you're not separating it from what you do every week, or like when you do step into the studio. So like when I do say you're a professional, I mean that, because it's just like you're not going in there like we do every week.
Slow clap.
We don't we wing it. Like I'm not saying that we're bad at winging it, but we've gotten very used to winging it just because like I said, most of our shit is just like conversations on the phone. So it's like that's what we usually do. But for you, it's like we could tell that like you put time into like the questions that you asked, and that you really wanted to like have a really good conversation about a topic, as opposed to just like let's just talk shit for an hour about this and see where it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like
we used to talk shit for an hour sometimes.
I mean, but that goes into you like growing as a podcaster, and you realizing like what works and what doesn't, and that counts too.
Yeah. Clap it up for everybody. Clap it up for everybody. Clap it up for everybody. But yeah, like it's definitely a community of people, and there's some of the guests, some of them don't speak to anymore. People have their own lives, but then there's some guests that stay in contact with us and stay in contact with me personally. So you gotta appreciate that, especially as people of color. We do need to unify more, and
Pox. That's what I call them. A pox. POC. Maybe it's just a thing I say. Like if I walk into a room, I'm like, there's not enough pox here.
Put it on the shirt.
Alright. I'm sure that's going to catch on. I'm sure.
But yeah, we're definitely a community. We're a community of people of color. We're a community of creatives. We're a community of like minds. So we should band together and, there's plenty of events that's going around that, you know, they have like podcasting events for people of color and things that happen in the city or in other states. We get invited to other shit too when we do other podcasts. So it's like, yeah,
we gotta get more Liddy out here, bro.
Yeah, much love to everybody else that's podcasting. Most of the responses we get on Instagram are other podcasters that post than when we post on the page. So it's like, shout out to everybody.
Oh yeah, shout outs. We just got 1,000 followers.
Oh yeah.
So down to the 1K.
Yeah. Oh, we just also hit.
Now? Is that a thing?
We also, huh?
So we can swipe up now?
I'm still waiting for that.
You can only do that when you hit 10K.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. You'll be alright.
You only got 9,000 to go.
Thanks, Aaron.
Some people have way more to go.
Thanks for reminding us we trash.
Well, there are some people that have been podcasting longer than both of us, and their numbers are lower.
Hot take!
That's a fact.
Shade!
That's no shade. That's a fact.
Snapple facts.
No, shade is facts too.
Snapple facts.
Guys, you guys have to realize.
Shade is like when you intentionally try to hurt somebody. Facts.
But you intentionally try to hurt somebody then. Okay. Bullet!
More fire. But yeah, it's like I don't even know what point I was trying to make. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's cool. Thank you to everybody.
Okay.
That's what Steve was trying to say.
Oh, and then we did have another Q&A from, who is this? The Relationship Podcast. Our viewership drops when we have guests. Any suggestions? I think I divulged into it. So normally how I pick guests, if they're normally another podcaster, if it's another podcaster, I tend to say yes off the rip because, again, we are a community. But what I do prior to bringing them on the show is listen to their show repeatedly prior to get a sense of who they are as an individual and what aspects to take. So it's like, I know y'all talk a lot of shit on y'all show, which, you know, is very entertaining. And then you both are women. So for the whole creepy nigga discussion is like, that's seamless because every woman could discuss an interaction they had with some dude who was stepping over the line. So that was easy. But yeah, just doing research on fellow podcasters, and then if you do have a guest, is like, what is that guest bringing, and then what other dynamics can you showcase as well? Because again, with the Mandy episode, she talks about sex on her show. It doesn't make sense to bring her on another show just to talk about sex.
Yeah.
She's, you know, a diverse woman. She's biracial. She works in corporate. She's, you know, having to deal with men herself, and, you know, the viewpoints of, you know, from that, and then also being a public figure as well, how she deals with that. So you gotta really understand like the dynamics that you're dealing with people, and then how to bring it about in different ways, and if they really have a captivating story. And then, to be quite honest, sometimes there's people that you may think are might be a solid guest, and it may not be the best outlook, because you know, it's different to have a conversation with somebody in person and then you put a mic in front of them. It's almost it's is that a flashback?
She hung from experience.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's like, people don't mind talking to you in person. They can say whatever the fuck they want to say because it's just like, it's just you. But when a mic is in front of them, it's not just you.
But when the mic comes out, then they can't drop nothing.
Yeah, they can't.
They get scared.
They don't want to be problematic. And I'm like, why not?
That's what we brought you here for.
Yeah.
It's called mic fright.
You don't want to smoke now?
Horrible.
Now you quit smoking?
But yeah, just basically like making sure if this guest is going to be somebody that, you know, can do podcasts well. Like, if you put a mic in front of them, they're not going to buckle under pressure. Or if they just have that captivating of a personality that they're going to be somebody that's going to be able to showcase who they are in front of a mic. So that's probably the advice I would give them.
Okay.
I think
choose your guest better is basically what you're saying. Like,
choose your guest better and make sure your content aligns with the guest as well.
Yeah.
Because they're, depending on who they are, you could dictate a whole episode around them, or it's something like in the episode I did with y'all, I already had a topic on the side. So you can include who you are as an individual, and then also what is this overlaying topic that we could both tackle where we can get some good feedback off of it.
Yeah. So enjoy talking to somebody doesn't mean everybody else is going to enjoy listening to y'all talk.
Accurate.
Facts.
Accurate.
So, keep that in mind.
Look at you dropping the gems.
I've learned.
I've learned.
I've learned.
Talking from XP.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So I think that's an hour.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure.
she just looked at the clock. And was like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know what any of these numbers mean.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
Like
Right.
a counseling session. That's all we have for this
Yeah.
week?
Time's up. Yeah.
Also, I want to thank Aaron for
Thank you for having me.
beautifully asking me all those questions that I wrote.
Of course.
Since you spoiled it for everybody.
I can read. There were good questions that I would have asked anyway. So.
This is true. I did okay. Pat myself on the back.
You did great.
I did all right.
Fantastic.
And it feels good to be back, yo. I was gone for for a month or whatever, and it feels good to be back in the studio with my peoples talking shit. Hopefully we get Nieema back soon. I know she's missing the show.
She's living
in our thoughts and prayers. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive and breathing.
Living her best life.
She's alive and breathing.
Yeah.
She ain't got time for these niggas. As the song goes.
Yeah, it feels good to be back, and look forward to crafting more episodes and bringing on other guests, and continuing this podcast journey.
Word.
That's exactly what it is.
It's about to get crazy, girl. Buckle in.
Wow. Yeah.
Do you know something I don't know? Because I didn't. I wasn't gonna buckle. Now you have me holding on for dear life.
I just want to up the suspense so you
Okay.
keep watching.
Oh, okay.
You thought this week was wild.
On the next week of Dragon Ball Z.
I know.
But yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank for everybody for listening and holding on. While we've been on break, we're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher. Then again, I got an email from Stitcher saying, your files isn't linking up, and I was like, you know what? I don't have time for this. So
Stitcher, don't be this person, Stitcher. Don't be this person.
Yeah, don't.
Nobody likes that person, okay?
It's like SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts got y'all beat. You're just gonna have to wait
Hot
on it.
take.
Wow.
You're just gonna have to hold up with a minute.
You might have to drop the Stitcher.
I know.
But no, we are everywhere. Also on YouTube because
Yes, please subscribe to the YouTube.
I'm the video guy, so I should say that.
Yeah, please subscribe to the YouTube. We need those at least 100.
So far, we're at 2 subs.
Ooh.
Can we drop a third by the time?
You sure?
Is it 2 or 3? I can't count.
I think we're
I mean,
more than that.
I can count, but I haven't
I
counted.
think we're in the 30s.
Oh, for real?
Subscribers? Yeah, we're in the 30s.
Someone else's YouTube page.
Yay.
Possibly.
YouTube is a crazy place. Anyway, subscribe.
Black
Yeah, just subscribe. Just make sure it's our show.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Sophisticated ignorance on YouTube.
And you guys started your YouTube page.
I mean, we took some video.
We
We did like a little teaser that we're gonna put on you. I mean, the goal is to put every episode moving forward. I think we're gonna start with the 100th episode and start posting everything after that.
Y'all have all structure and planned out. Oh, look at you. Oh.
Guys,
That wasn't part of the 80%?
No, that's at the 100. We're getting there though. It's all gonna be great. So when we get one, subscribe.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just subscribe to anything that says vital information and sophisticated ignorance.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're on YouTube. We're on all the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
Do give us feedback on the Instagram page, whether it's the show page or the personal pages. We do respond to everything. Is there anything else?
Drop the Cash App. Everybody's doing it.
Wow.
Be bold. You
Well,
know?
might be in a new place of employment, so.
Whoa! Manifestation!
Oh my god.
Positive vibes!
Positive vibes.
Oh my god. Positivity.
So, yeah, I mean, it may not even need the Cash App. I may actually start donating.
Oh.
Hot take.
But yeah, we just want to appreciate for everybody tuning in. When do you drop your shows? Every Thursday,
Every
correct?
Thursday, yeah. That's what they say.
Oh, Scandal Thursdays.
Every
Oh,
Thursday.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, now that Scandal's off the air now, y'all can get that audience.
Oh, yeah.
That's dope.
Sure, that's what they're going to do with their
I was trying to compliment you, damn.
Every Thursday. If not Thursday, it'll be up by Friday. We be out here every week.
Good,
Posting
good.
bullshit.
We're up every Monday. YouTube is usually every Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Give or take a few days.
During the week, for sure.
Yeah.
It'll
Just,
be up there.
Mhm.
just wait for it. I think that's all. I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else I need to plug.
No,
Yeah.
you good shit.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're fucking out of here.
Yeah.
All right.
If you won't give it 5 seconds, No, if you won't give it 5
Okay,
years.
we're done.
If you won't give it 5 years, don't give it 5 seconds.
What does that mean?
Like, if you don't give something 5 years to, like, come to fruition, don't give it 5 seconds of your time.
Was that in a fortune cookie?
No, I've heard somebody say it before, and I took that with me as, like, a mantra. Because, like, anything I want to do, and they just, like, if you won't give it 5 years.
I feel like you're a mantra person. Like, you just be dropping mantras.
Nah. I like that you think I am, but, like, the only mantra I have is, like, if you won't give it 5 years, don't give it 5 seconds.
You literally have no other mantra.
I mean, like, shake that ass. Is that a mantra?
I think that's the perfect way to wrap
both
up this show.
deserve to be on t-shirts. Just merch coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to wrap up the show.
Okay.
We want to thank everybody again for listening for like the 5th time, and we'll fucking out of here. And don't forget to shake that ass.
Yeah.
Facts.
We are out here. Fuck y'all talking about. Sophisticated ignorance. Are y'all fucking crazy?
That's a fact. Talk
Are y'all
that shit.
crazy? Yo, y'all getting me tight. Like, I be out here trying to be humble. Let's not get fucking crazy. Sophisticated ignorance. All right?